One. All right. We're back with another episode of the Ascend Athlete Podcast. It's been a little while.
Welcome
It's
back.
2023 now, and the Open is literally next week. So, how are we feeling about that, boys?
I'm excited.
Ricky looks terrified.
No, I'm excited. It's number 10 for me, but also just to see how much growth has happened over the last year. So,
What was your first Open?
2013.
Did you skip one?
You had to, because this is my 9th.
This is my 9th, and I skipped one, and I started 2014. You skipped.
I did 2015.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go.
No, I still did it.
You just didn't sign up for it.
Did you
No.
skip like 19 or 20?
20. Yeah, 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, this is my 9th, and I've skipped none, and I started in 15.
It was my 9th. I skipped 17, and I started in 14.
And it's going to be my 10th.
Oh, look at all of us. Almost a decade.
We're getting old.
Yeah.
We're getting old in this thing, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm getting younger.
Yeah, okay. All right. So we wanted to get together today and talk a little bit about how to approach training through the Open for kind of different levels of athletes, depending on what your goals are for the season. So I think it's only right that we start with kind of talking about how should people approach their training right now if the Open is the most important part of their season. So Mahmoud or Ricky, you guys can kind of kick that off, give your thoughts. I'll definitely want to hear from both of you. But if this is their Super Bowl and it's unfortunately 3 weeks long, what do you think those athletes should be kind of doing, or what are you doing with your athletes who this is their main focus of their year?
I'm gonna go first. First of all, I want to say how much there's been evolution in this just periodization, I guess. I remember a day when the Open came and everybody just freaked out. Everybody did not know what to do. Everybody's trying to get fit, but not get fit at the same time, doing the workout 3 times a week. It was just a colossal chaos. So the fact that there's actually some addressing to that now is great.
Right.
I will say for an athlete like myself, the Open is a big deal, right? I'm going to try my hardest to make it to quarterfinals. I am not guaranteed a spot there. I have made it before, but we don't know. It's a question mark. So my Open is the very most important competition of the year. The Open is not time to get fitter.
Mm-hmm.
The Open is not time to build gains or get stronger. Those 3 weeks are your competition that you've built for the past year.
Right.
So in my opinion, an Open athlete or an Open level athlete needs to prioritize all his external factors to make sure that he has peak performance on Friday and peak performance on Monday.
Right.
And let's be honest, anybody who's trying to actually qualify for quarterfinals, even if they say, I'm going to go one and done, they will probably do it again. So, and if you're trying to qualify, there's no reason not to.
Right. If you're not sure,
Yeah.
if you're not, basically certain that you're going to make quarterfinals, then it's in your best interest to give it a go because you're going to learn something that first attempt.
Right. You should be able to be analytical of your first attempt and improve on it on Monday.
Especially as more scores come out, more data comes out, things like that. Coaches have, all of our athletes will be doing it, so we'll have more information and things like that.
Exactly. And I've always been a data person, so I would go to the curves of scores before the preliminary data, and then they release another one on Sunday. So that also kind of plays into factor. But if I'm an Open athlete, I'm focusing to peak performance on Friday and Monday, which means Saturday will probably be a recovery or active recovery or a light workout just to move. Sunday will probably be either just mobility and resting. Monday will be peak performance. I'm talking on being just an Open athlete. I will probably not do another piece before the Open workouts. I will not train again with the Open workouts just to give my body enough juice to be primed on that day or on those days. After Monday, Tuesday will be a light training day. Wednesday, I will try and this is the day I do fitness. And then Thursday will be a deload day, whether flushing, mobility, foam rolling, just getting my body primed as we watch the announcement for the next workout.
Yeah, no, I agree with that kind of a structure. It's something I've used in the past as well with my athletes. Ricky, I want to get your thoughts. What for an open athlete, right? If we're looking at Wednesday or maybe Tuesday, depending on how beat up they are from their redo, as their training day for that week, what would you recommend strength work look like? Right? We're not trying to get stronger, but we probably still need to touch some barbells.
Yeah, and I mean, just with how the open has shown in the last couple of years, we are getting heavier and heavier weights, or at least like a 1-rep max or something like that in that capacity to a degree. I mean, I think with Boz programming, it's probably going to be less of that, but there still might be the chance. But usually the biggest thing is making sure you still have your technique dialed in. This is the best time to do that. Even if you're training through the open, you want to make sure your technique is dialed in and doing anywhere from, depending on what the workout is each week, anywhere from 65 to 80, 82.5%, I would say, for the lifts and strength work. Probably backing down on the squats on the heavier side, but still something like 80%, and using kind of like week 1, 80%, week 2, 75, week 3, 70%. So that way you get as much strength or deload getting towards that final week. Each week is going to be a little bit different. If let's say week 1 is not lower back heavy, you can push the percentage of cleans or snatches at like 80%. But let's say we're doing 150 dumbbell snatches, maybe on Tuesday you don't want to do that. So it just depends on each week of that, and just listening to your body and being able to have a good coach to put you in the best plan of success for that.
Right. I think that makes a lot of sense, having that first week be the last kind of time you hit something over 80%, because that's going to be the week that you're still the freshest from being beat down from multiple redos, the stress, the adrenaline, all of those things, and then letting your body kind of coast down as you go through the weeks, so that your emphasis is just on the conditioning and the workouts and things like that.
With that, though, I mean, I think a lot of people get a little caught up in week 1 and just understanding that there are 2 more weeks. So I know back in my history is, if you need to redo the second and third, probably workouts a little bit more. Week 1, just base it more off of your effort. Like if you're like, okay, well, I know I messed up in X, Y, and Z, but let's say you do it and you gave your full effort, full I was about to say full victory, full effort, but then being able to, and you're like, oh, I'm going to redo it just for the sake of redoing it, and you're probably only get 1 rep more, or you're going to get less. It's not really worth it. So just make sure you have that conversation with people. Is like week 1 should be based on your effort and your strategy. And if you notice that you didn't do well in that on the first workout, then you can do it again, but do not harp on the first workout.
I would say, like, don't go off of emotion.
Correct.
Right. Don't do it because I'm going to grit harder. That's
right. Yeah.
Happen.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about that kind of toward the end, but we can talk about that right now. Just the whole kind of discussion on redos. I think personally for myself and my athletes, a lot of times athletes will finish a workout and they're like, I want to do it again. And then what I always ask them is, tell me how you're going to get better. And the answer can't be, I'm going to try harder.
Yes. Exactly.
Like, I want to see like numerical data, like I'm going to go this fast, or I'm going to back off here, or I'm going to make up time on, I know I went too slow on this transition, or this, that, and the other. Because I think with open workouts usually being so painful as well, right? You just get into that place where it's really, really difficult. Relying on, I'm just going to try harder and be tougher, just isn't always going to go in your favor. And then you end up redoing a workout and not trying as hard, getting a worse score, and then your recovery is even worse, and you missed out on a day to just train during the open, right?
And I mean, it also sets you for mental defeat for longer than that. It has more psychological repercussions. And
Correct.
Like, even like as simple as like, I remember when like athletes came to me for the past few years, they're like, what are you going to do differently?
Right.
Right. It's not like as simple as that. Like if somebody doesn't have even the numerical data, okay, talk me through a different rep scheme that you're going to go through, and then we can discuss that, or talk me through a different like strategy. But if you don't have that, there's no reason for it.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, I would say adding another, because obviously I said it should be, if you're going to redo it, especially on week one, it needs to be based on 3 things, which we just talked about: effort and strategy, right? And then the third thing to consideration is the volume of the workout. Like, if it's that burpee deadlift workout from last year, or 150 dumbbell snatches, or something that's going to be super, super heavy, that's going to put you out of commission, or you're going to possibly rip your hands. It's like, just be smart about that. Like, again, effort, strategy, volume are the things you want to consider when repeating, especially in week one.
Yep. Yeah, I always think about like workouts that have no business being redone. I always get reminded, I don't remember what year it was 14 or 13, the box jumps and ascending weight and ascending reps deadlifts. And it was like, that workout is physically, for 95% of the people on planet Earth, unredoable.
14.3.
Yeah, 14.3.
Because you're going to probably hit your 1 rep max and stop there.
Right. Well, and even if it's not your 1 rep max, I mean,
or like
so much volume. Right.
Nobody stops because they're exhausted on box jump overs.
Yeah, no, the box jump overs are not the workout there. Definitely the deadlifts. All right, cool. So that's kind of how open athletes should approach the next couple of weeks. Obviously, making sure that they're doubling down on their recovery, things like that, strategizing, talking with their coach, and those things.
Right. And of course, nutrition, hydration, sleep, all of that.
All of that stuff. What about quarterfinals athletes? What about those athletes who their Super Bowl, let's say individual quarterfinals is their Super Bowl. So that's 2 weeks or 10 days after the conclusion of the Open, I think the Monday. How should they be approaching these workouts? And let's say, for the sake of conversation, these are athletes who are fairly certain, pending some sort of a catastrophe, they can one and done the Open workouts with a good run, solid effort, and move on with their life.
So they are going to get to quarterfinals, but they're not making semifinals?
Well, semifinals is their Super Bowl. So, I mean, that's a huge range, right? We have 10% of each region. So these could be athletes. Let's say this is athletes who they're just peaking for quarters. Let's say for the first part of this discussion, they're not necessarily on the semifinal bubble. They just want to have their best performance they can in quarterfinals. Ricky, you go first.
Yeah, so especially on the strength side, is they want to be able to make sure they maintain at least the 75 to 85% during the Open.
Yep.
And then kind of, because there's, like you said, a 10-day period, maybe doing getting up to 90% the week before, while being able to rest and recover from the Open, because it does take a while.
Right.
Or you do need to recover in that sense, but just building to a heavy-ish, again, I'll have somebody do probably some doubles or triples of cleans or snatches to where the load won't really push them that much, or heavier complexes. And then just keeping their back squat and front squat, same thing in that range, to really keep them just optimally performing, ready for that. And then around the Tuesday before is, their last heavy-ish day, but that's probably more of a deload at 70 to 80%, just in that realm, to really fine-tune some things. Basically, the Tuesday, if we're backtracking from there, the Tuesday before quarterfinals, going back 5 days, should be probably a little bit more of a intensity-based to help keep their strength up, I would say.
Yeah, I think something I'll point out, just because I know how you think and write, the important thing to keep in mind with this, keeping the percentages, like you said, 80%, and hopefully building up closer to 90% through the Open, in reality, is the volume on those lifts is going to be low and decrease across that time. So it's not saying that those athletes trying to peak for quarterfinals through the Open are, in week 3 of the Open, and they're doing 8 sets of 3 at 80% of their snatch. That's not how that would be applied. It's important for them to feel the load and the intensity, but it's the volume comes down during the Open and should continue to go down into quarterfinals.
Right. And funny enough, I was reading this morning, and there was a study by a gentleman made up in 2021, and it was talking about periodization of strength during competition. And it's talking about something called the microdosing. So instead of going to volume, you're basically cutting the pieces short, going up high intensity, but reducing the volume and distributing the volume over different further apart sessions, so you're not building up that destructive stimulus from strength training that could be done during the off season or the pre-season, but in the competition phase, you kind of want to like still hit those heavy percentages, but be on a much shorter duration / volume of your sessions in order to not induce injuries and overtraining.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Kind of spreading out the frequency, decreasing the volume, but keeping the intensity relatively high to keep the nervous system stimulated and also just the body used to a heavy load, right? If you don't go for a heavy snatch or a heavy clean and jerk for a really long time, I mean, especially the clean and jerk, you hit that clean maybe, and then you're going to jerk it and you're like, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
I'm going to pass out because it's not that you can't do it. It's just you're not used to it.
And that also is given because quarterfinals have been known to test your strength in one way or another, and if not, maybe more. But like, if you make it to quarterfinals, expect your strength to be tested. So you can't just like bail on strength for 4 weeks before quarterfinals.
Right.
Yeah, you have to continuously train it. And I think to add to Ricky's, I think the same goes for skill. You have to induce some sort of gymnastics capacity. Again, based on we don't have a lot of data on that, unfortunately, yet. But because we have only quarterfinals for 2 years, it is heavily filtered with a lot of high complexity movements. So we've had ring muscle ups, we've had pistols, we've had rope climbs, we've had even GHDs. Like, there's a lot of high complexity movement that are not going to show up in the open. And I think that for quarterfinal athletes, even whether or not they're going to make it to semis, they need to still continue tap that regularly during the open. Maybe that could be like an a stimulus, a skill piece on Tuesdays on the lighter training day, where they're just like going over the skill capacity of it or the skill technique of it, depending on where they're standing. Strict handstand push-ups, handstand walks, all those have been known to come in quarterfinals, and you can't bail on it for 4 weeks and expect it to be primed in quarterfinals.
Yeah. So how would you guys, for your athletes going through the open who are peaking for quarters, how would you structure their training week through the open? Kind of similarly what we did for an athlete peaking for the open versus what would you do for an athlete who's training through the open, basically?
So I would say if for an athlete who's doing the open, I will block off their Mondays for redo as a
just in case.
Because if they're just doing the open, again, if that is a competitive goal for them, if they're not doing and let me just be very clear, if you're not doing the open just for fun, if you're doing the open to be competitive, then I will block off your Monday that you're probably going to redo it tentatively. Tuesday will be a skill day, right? Let's work on those pull-ups. Let's work on those toes to bar. Let's not forget about those. And then, and of course, with some strength, but it would be just lower intensity on the Metcon, potentially like just an EMOM or something that is lower heart rate, lower CNS activation, and then, or demand. And then I'll be a little bit on the Metcon side, high intensity, potentially like multiple small pieces or just a decent medium duration traditional CrossFit workout coupled with strength. And then Thursday, active recovery, if not zone 2 and mobility. And then Friday, prime day.
So now let's flip that script a little bit and just talk about if there's an athlete who is vying for a spot at a semifinal. Does their week during the open look different?
Maybe one day, I would say. I'd say everything else stays normal just because usually if there's vying for a semifinal spot or within reach, their fitness is going to be at a good level to get them to quarterfinals. So you shouldn't really like stress that too much. You still want to give your best effort because it is a data point to show how you compare to others, which is good. But the goal is quarterfinals and being prepped for that. So I would say, and especially if you have an athlete that's doing either 2 days a couple times a week or up to, I would say 3 to 5 hours more, then you're just keeping things as normal. while still honing in on the things that's going to make them, like if they struggle with high power output or some skills, you're still going to incorporate that in most of their training still, as if it's just another training session, which is what we've been doing here more or less anyway, with, programming open style workouts on Fridays. So it's keeping things as is to make them ensure that they peak during quarterfinals to make sure they get to semifinals. So, because there's going to be more stress during quarterfinals than the open for those athletes.
Yeah. And I think for myself, the athletes that I'm coaching who are, looking at going to semifinals, whether they're a little unsure or even sure that they're going to make it or should make it through the quarterfinals to semifinals, it's, Friday, we're going to hit the open workout first thing in the morning for your first piece, but then we're going to have accessory work. We're going to have our second training session with strength work and some other conditioning. Depending on what the open workout is, will dictate a lot of what Friday afternoon and Saturday look like. But for those athletes, they're really starting to, I would say, tighten the bolts on their peaking for quarterfinals. Unfortunately, that's just at the start of the open. So I think it's pertinent and important that you can keep the open as much business as usual for those athletes. But it is a very good opportunity for those athletes to get used to camera setup, taping, am I in the right spot and all that stuff for the quarterfinals, which will be, like you said, much more stress.
Would it be a good summary to say that for open to quarterfinal athletes, the open is more of an interruption to their cycle compared to if you're a quarterfinal to semifinal athlete, it's more of you're including it into the cycle of whatever cycle you've been on, or it could be integrated, I guess, better. But for the open to quarterfinal athlete, you can't really have, you can't integrate it into a cycle and continue through it because you're kind of deloading through it,
right?
Versus up or peaking for quarterfinalists or semifinalists,
right? And it's, I mean, even if we look at the team side of things, it's a little bit less of a hassle for team quarterfinals athletes who are looking to make a semifinal on the team side, but they might not be sure that they're a shoe-in to get through quarterfinals because they have another, 2 weeks, I think, from individual quarters to team quarters. So they have a little bit more leeway and time to continue training and preparing. So if things go a little bit awry during the open with their training schedule, it's not as big of a deal. But for those people who are doing individual quarterfinals and not, confident that they're going to make the cut line to make a semifinal, I think it's definitely goes into the coach's realm of responsibility to keep training as even keel as possible and not let them get too wrapped up in the open. Like, you did what you needed to do to get through this stage. We know now with the way things have been structured, at least with the last 2 years, the open is probably going to be very simple engine based, which a lot of athletes who can make a semifinal from quarterfinals still may not do great in those tests. But as long as they're getting in their top 10% and doing what they need to do, then it just doesn't matter.
Yeah. And again, grade at this point is relative to the leaderboard of the open, but it's not a determinant of their fitness.
Correct. Right. Yeah. Well, it just comes down to also, like, especially those athletes who are going to semifinals, which is kind of our next point, which I think this is the easiest one to kind of discuss. Yeah. But if you're an athlete going to semifinals, I really hope you're not peaked right now, because it's not anywhere near time to be peaked, right? You still have a couple of training blocks to get under your belt to really be, ready to do your thing in May. So I think, what would you guys say from your opinions is the biggest difference for somebody, if you had an athlete and they're like, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt you're going to a semifinal?
I wouldn't kind of have that mentality to be honest. I would say you need to have like a mini peak at quarters, because you don't want to take that for granted. Or let's say somebody beyond a shadow of a doubt that you think that they have a chance of getting to semifinal. Everybody has a weakness, so in some way, shape, or form. So I would say just having the mentality of like, look, this weekend means a lot during quarterfinals. But let's say, for instance, that you have full confidence in them, which you should. You still want to kind of make sure that it's kind of a peak, then deload, then another basically full cycle. Because from quarters, you'll probably be able to get another 8-week cycle in.
I think it's right around 8 weeks.
Yeah, so you can still make sure they are rested and recovered and motivated to get ready for their semifinal. At least in our case, because ours is the end of May.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree 100%. You took that exactly the way I was hoping you should take that. So I agree 100%. All right. Any other big resounding?
Sorry, I'm going to say, like, I don't think you should have an athlete that is 100% sure of making it to a semifinals, like just having that mindset. So I think that's just something to keep clear is like no, like even people that have been to the games 10 times, I don't even think are taking that.
I mean, we've seen examples of they not making it through.
Of quarters?
The 2 semis. Like some big names dropped, or I guess OG names dropped that used to make it to the games no problem, and now they just didn't make it through semifinals. Because again, like it is a limited number.
It's also going to be a little different this year with North America, being divided up 60-60, and with the way they're releasing the workouts, it will be 2 at a time, 1 at a time. So that drastically changes people's ability to strategize and redo workouts. So it does, I think, to Ricky's point, put a little bit more onus on all athletes of all calibers need to be ready for quarterfinals. Maybe not, if they're semifinals or previous games athletes, maybe they don't need to be the fittest that they're going to be all year, which I think that's fine. But knowing that they need to be ready and go in and take it seriously, because with the way the structure is right now, redos are going to be hard to do. And with a smaller field, if you bonk an event completely, you probably don't have that much leeway to make it back up.
That's fair.
Right.
I think even making quarterfinals, and I know Tristan, you and I talked about this the other day, is like I think making quarterfinals is going to be harder because you used to be just in North America be like a flat number is like 10% of 50,000, but now it's actually the pool's actually smaller because they're taking it from east and west. So
a bad event in the new format hurts you more than it did previously. So, and we were looking at the kind of open quarterfinals numbers on the games website last night. Those are live and updating numbers. But if there's any athletes out there who haven't looked at those numbers, if you go look at it right now, and then you go look at what made quarterfinals last year for North America, you can do the math and it's pretty close, but it's definitely a smaller pool. So you're going to have to perform in the open and perform in quarterfinals. So. All right. Any other big things for the Open that you guys think are important that we kind of didn't touch on for athletes of any caliber? Ricky, you've been in this a long time. Mahmoud, you've been in this a long time. We were talking about how many Opens you guys have done. Things out that you might think are helpful for people who, maybe this is their first year and they're thinking they can get into quarterfinals, or the first year they think they can make it to quarterfinals, or they're, looking to crack the top 250 in quarterfinals or something like that. Any bits of advice for those people out there?
If that's your first Open and you're hoping to make it to quarterfinals, find somebody who's experienced to give you advice on how to approach those workouts.
I was meaning it's their first Open that they think they'll make quarterfinals.
So they think they have a shot this year.
Correct. Maybe they were the 89th percentile last year.
Right. I would say prioritize recovery. Prioritize mindset going into the workouts. Don't overdo it. It's a simple test. Just don't overdo fitness. You have done the fitness. You're not going to get fitter through the Open. Just hone down. This is the time you kind of dial back the volume and recover as much as you can for the next 3 weeks, I guess it's the next 3 weeks, to make it into quarterfinals. And you don't have to win every workout in your gym. You just have to make it to quarterfinals.
Yeah, I think Ricky brought up a good point earlier about being kind of patient through the weeks of the Open, especially with the format we've seen the last 2 years. The first 2 tests really have been no skill, very high intensity kind of turnover style workouts or high muscle endurance workouts. If you're an athlete who thrives on skills like you need to obviously maximize your performance in those 2 tests, but your week is probably not coming until the last week. And then that is where that kind of an athlete would make up a substantial amount of ground through the open. So I do think that's an important thing as well, is just knowing it's a 3-week game and not one workout, right? What do you got, Rick?
No, I think I got a good one here. The first thing is when the workouts get released, or it's game day, take a breath, relax.
Yeah.
If you don't worry, if you just only worry about your effort, everything will take care of itself.
Yep.
Trust the process that you've put the work in, whether it's a year, 6 months, 3 months, coming off of an injury or whatever. Like, honestly, Mahmoud said it, don't overdo it. Don't overthink it. Another thing is, when those workouts come out, the first thing should not be, I wish it was this with this, with this, with this.
Right.
Or it would be better if this or this or this, because none of that actually matters. At this point, it's more of like, okay, I'm ready to accept this challenge and put to test the work that I've done over the year, and embrace that challenge that is coming, and just be curious of what you are capable of, not what you think will be detrimental to you. I think that's some of the best things I could say is, like, don't overthink it. Take a deep breath. Don't worry about the outcome during the workout. Just give your best effort. And the biggest thing, my best open performances were the ones where I just had fun. Like, I only did all the workouts once, didn't really care about what the outcome is. The only thing I can control is my attitude and my effort. And then it did me extremely well in the open those years. So yeah. I think those are some of the biggest things that people need to remember is, control what you can control, which is your attitude and your effort.
Yeah. I think the key word that you said is accept the challenge. A lot of people freak out. And once you do that, your mindset is already like, you're going to panic.
Right.
You're going to panic mid-workout. Like, I've seen so many people panic, and I'm not going to even remember who they were, but like, I remember people were they stopped during the workout. Myself included. I remember one day when I was just like still relatively new, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not winning. Oh my God. And it's just like, everything just started getting like impossible. So just accept that this is the workout. You've done way harder workouts before. You've gone fast. You've tested all of those. So it's literally just somebody that you don't know that's giving you a workout. That's all.
Yeah. I think an example that I use is probably the most chaotic one is, like, obviously I love thrusters, and I'm the only one of people that love thrusters. And I've had a history of doing my best workouts were the final one, because majority of them were thrusters.
Right.
And, I learned very early going into my other years, like, I need to have that approach to every workout. And instead of having super low finishes, I had better finishes because I was excited for this challenge. So.
Yeah. No, I agree. Those are all really good points. I think for me, the one thing I would bring up, and this is a little bit more of a technical thing, but this is something that happens every year in the open that I see athletes do, and it makes me want to go stand in traffic. Warm up.
Yes.
Athletes warm up all year. They do multiple pieces, depending on their level. They lift before a Metcon or an open retest, and they do really, really well. And then the open gets here, and everybody freaks out, and they think they're going to get tired before the workout. So they like bullshit on a bike for 30 seconds and do some arm swings and then jump into the workout. And their body's not prepared for the speed of contraction, the stress, the adrenaline, the heart rate, any of those things. And then their open workout is just a miserable experience, and they don't perform as well as they could. So something we're going to be really big on with our athletes and our community is making sure that there's thoughtful, intelligent warm-ups that make you primed and ready to attack whatever the open workouts are. But if you're any athletes out there, warm up. CrossFitters do better the warmer we are. You look at the data. How many freaking people PR their lifts at the end of open workouts? How many freaking people, get through snatch reps at 95% in that open workout in 2017 or whatever? That the laws of strength and conditioning would say is not possible, but it is possible. You're just really, really warm and you're not overthinking. So before the open workouts, get really, really warm and don't overthink it. I think is kind of my soapbox thing that happens in the open every year, and it just drives me absolutely up the wall that I see athletes do. All right, boys, closing thoughts, anything like that? Glad we got to get on, chat about this a little bit. If you're on Ascend Athlete, we do have another open retest tomorrow. The last open retest before the open itself gets here. Mr. Mahmoud and Mr. Ricky and myself are going to be doing that workout, I think, tomorrow. Mahmoud, did you talk to Ricky yet?
Oh, I want to surprise him.
Yeah, so Mahmoud was talking to me on FaceTime last night, Ricky, and he was talking a little mess about this open workout. So he's gonna come jump in on it with us tomorrow morning.
Like talking, like just to talk, or talk like with some action behind it.
No, he said he's gonna beat us.
You're gonna beat us.
Yes.
That's
Tomorrow at 11 a.m. YouTube Live, Ascend Athlete channel.
You know it's a 20-pound ball, right?
Yes, I know.
Just making sure.
You also know you have to jump off the floor, right?
He said, and we can't make any excuses about doing cleans first.
Yeah.
That's fine. I would do that before that. That's a good warm up before that.
That's what I told him. I was like, we're gonna do like 10 cleans. We'll be fine.
Okay, you're talking all this mess. What if you lose?
I'm not betting.
Oh,
okay.
I'm not
All right. Well, we'll see if we can't get a bet out of you in the morning before
Also,
we get going.
This is one of my favorite things where you got those people that are like, hard chargers everywhere else, and then come the open, where they at? That's why I love to see it.
They're all out there. Everybody knows somebody.
Everybody knows somebody where it's like, oh my God, you are so good. 349 weeks out of the year. Then all of a sudden, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Mm-hmm. It's my favorite time of year.
I'll see you tomorrow at 11.
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow at 11.
All right, boys. We're going to hop off here. I appreciate y'all's time and thoughts. Good luck in the open, everybody out there. And if you are needing some advice or some coaching to help get you through this, you can find us all at Ascend Athlete, and we'd be more than happy to help guide you through the open and help you be successful in your goals. So later, boys.
Bye. Happy open.